Hi, I'm Jono, and if you're new here, I do pencil drawings. I wanted to go into a deep dive into how I did the iris of one of my favorite recent drawings, Gummy. This was a really challenging one and kind of stood out in terms of the way that I've done other irises before, in that I was manipulating it in a way that I wasn't confident with at all. And trying to crack and solve the texture was a really big challenge. So here's a deep dive in some of the tools, techniques, and thinking behind the iris of the drawing Gummy. Just quickly, this video is sponsored by Squarespace, but I'll tell you more about them a bit later. So the part of this drawing that I want to focus on is the iris. I made up a lot of the textures here and felt like I was working from my imagination a little bit more. I had a reference, but I was diverging from the reference quite a bit. I felt like that was quite a freeing space, but it came with a lot of doubt. I'm often very scared when I leave my reference, even though I have to a lot of the time. It can be really daunting because you aren't sure how it's going to come out, especially when you've laid down weeks of work and then you go into an area that you kind of thumbsucking and it could come out bad. But anyway, so the iris was really exciting for me to do in this drawing, and that's what I want to focus on for this video. The first area I wanted to map out just to make sure that I kept it clean was the white highlight in the iris. So I'm just doing the reflection of the eyelashes in this area, and I've drawn a line to just know that I shouldn't impose on that area. I need to try and keep this area as clean as possible. Now we're diving straight into some of the tones for the iris. I'm starting off cautiously here. I'm really nervous about messing things up. So I'm working very softly with makeup sponges and cotton wool so that if I don't feel like I like what I'm doing, I can erase it quite easily. I'm working on the larger shapes of the iris first, and then we're going to dive into some of the details. And that's where I want to try and draw those gummy bears, that richness that kind of makes it look like it's three-dimensional, lots of gummy bears overlapping onto each other. And I have to really study the reference and study the texture to try and get that sense, because if I were to just copy the reference exactly, firstly, it would take an age, and it's also a little bit less enjoyable. It's more fun to try and understand the texture and then kind of doodle a little bit and work from imagination. The first thing that I noticed with the gummies was because of the gelatine-like density of it, light passes through it quite easily. It acts a little bit like water in a way. So light passes through, it's got a highlight, and on the opposite side, instead of a shadow, it's got another kind of illuminated section. So it's often the center little bits of each limb is probably going to be the darkest area of it, with a little highlight from where the light is coming and an illuminated area where you usually would have a shadow. Once I wrapped my head around this, I got a good sense of how light behaves with this texture. The issue with this is that whole texture changed in the crevices. The highlight switches to the opposite side. We've got reflected light going all over the place, and I had to kind of study these things again to figure out how they behave in those crevices of the iris. So I'm working with my 2B mechanical pencil, and I'm just using this to try and get some tone in the shadows. So I'm starting to build up confidence and starting to build up some detail. You can see here what I was talking about. Everything is kind of outlined by a shadow, and there'll be a little highlight on each little section. The way that I started drawing the gummy bears was to get a bit of an outline and then use my Tombow Mono Zero eraser to draw the area where the light is hitting and where the light is kind of glowing from behind. To get a bit of texture, I would do little scribbles to give it a bit of fleshiness, because it's not water, it's not as clear as water, and there's a lot of sugar particles on the gummies as well. So to try and capture that a little bit would just give a hint that it's more textured than just like a perfectly smooth surface. The shapes started getting pretty predictable, which was a huge relief. It sped up my process in a huge way. This is the fun part of drawing. I've never drawn these before, and it's always a challenge to try and crack the code. So it's like a puzzle that you have to solve to figure out how the texture is going to work, how it behaves with light. And that's what kind of keeps me going. That's what makes every drawing interesting, is figuring out that challenge. It's not that you study and know how to draw all these different textures, but you know you have the capacity to learn how to do it or to solve how to draw different textures, and that just frees you up to draw anything that you like. I had to do a lot of layering with this, so even if there was an area that was quite far sunken in, it would be quite a dark shadow. So I'd use my pencil, get those detailed shapes, and then go over the whole area with either cotton wool or the makeup sponge, and then I'd layer it over and over, because every time I go over, I lose a lot of the detail that I'd laid down with the pencil. So then I just have to go back in, find that detail again, and then cover that area again until I start building up the tone that I want to give it the sense that it's far back or fallen far back. And then when I pull out the highlights again, the illusion comes alive. You start seeing where the light is hitting, the shadows that it's casting. It's kind of the slow process that I use to build up these textures. Also, doing the textures this way allows you to pull that highlight out. If you do it slowly, you very gently apply the graphite every time, you build up this rich tone, but you can also remove from it really easily, and that gives you so much freedom. If you were to just apply graphite in one layer, you'd have to press so hard, and that would kind of forfeit the opportunity of being able to erase into it again. I found it really challenging to try and replace the textures of the iris with the gummies, because there's a middle ground. If I went too far into just drawing the gummies, it wouldn't look like an iris and we'd lose that texture quite a lot. And if I went too far into the iris, it kind of would feel like a very strange iris and you wouldn't really get the sense that it's made up of gummy bears either. So there was this balancing act that I kept trying to navigate. At times I felt like I went too far one way or the other, and I had to try and bring it back and rework some areas as well. So yeah, there we go. It was a huge relief to actually finish this drawing and to finish this texture and be happy with it. I took a big risk with this and I was very worried at a lot of points that I wouldn't quite capture what I was looking for in the way that I wanted to. But really happy with how it came out, and I'm glad that I can share that with you guys as well. Before in this video, just want to give a quick shout out to this video sponsor, Squarespace. The reason I'm very happy to talk about them in almost every single video is that they played a huge role in my career starting out. Early on, I was looking for a way to showcase my work to make it easy for people to find me and get in touch with me. And I didn't have time to learn HTML and to build a website from scratch, and it was just quite an overwhelming, daunting task. And so I was looking for a platform that would do all of that for me while building a really beautiful, elegant website. And so I found that Squarespace did that effortlessly. I never had to patch or upgrade anything. I could register a domain with them or set up an online store. And most importantly, I could design a portfolio and show my work the way that I wanted to. Also, every time I got stuck, their amazing support team helped me out instantly. So if you're looking at building a website, give Squarespace a try. And if you decide that you love them, use the offer code and get 10% off your first purchase. Yeah, there we go. I was so proud of this drawing getting finished in the way that I wanted it to, and I'm just incredibly grateful that I can share that with you guys here as well and share some of the thoughts and processes that we're going through capturing a texture that I had no clue how to do before I started. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like. It helps the channel out in a huge way. As always, thanks for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.